Are you ready to untangle from your past, recover from heartbreak, and revive your life? This is Soul CPR with your host, Ann Papayoti. We've all had soul-crushing experiences and lost ourselves in our pain, but there is a way out. On this podcast, Amazon best-selling author, award-winning life coach, and advice columnist Ann Papayoti helps us navigate the path from heartbreak to healing. So now, please welcome the host of Soul CPR, Ann Papayoti.
Have you ever given your all to someone and they walked away anyway, leaving you wondering what happened and questioning your worth? Well, today we're going to talk about just that. We're going to talk about when love isn't enough. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Ann Papayoti. So take a moment and reflect on how it feels to give your all to someone, your love, your time, your effort, your energy, only to be left behind. You believed in the relationship. You invested emotionally, physically, maybe financially, most likely, and certainly spiritually. Just because that's who you are, but slowly you started noticing signs, maybe emotional distance, inconsistencies, unmet needs, and still you stayed, hoping that your love could be enough to fix it. Maybe they were emotionally unavailable. Maybe they gaslit you into thinking that everything that seemed wrong was your fault. Or maybe you convinced yourself that it was just a rough patch and that things would get better. You gave everything, but they walked away anyway. And you're left wondering, questioning what and why. And you're feeling heartbroken. The battery of questions keep you distracted by day and up at night, and there are no answers except for what he or she may share with you. And those answers are not comforting. I was recently in a conversation with someone whom I don't know very well, but whom I see on occasion. To be specific, she's an esthetician, and I happen to get my legs waxed, and that might be too much information, but I hate shaving. But anyway, I could tell she was in very deep thought, and eventually she somewhat timidly asked me, she said, "Ann, you're a relationship coach, right?" I said, "Yes, I am." And from there, she shared that she and her boyfriend of 2 years had recently broken up, that she had found, or that he had found someone new rather, and that he preferred this new person's physical type to hers. Now, as you can imagine, this crushed her and left her feeling inadequate. And she went on to tell me that she had given all of herself to him, had done everything possible to make this relationship work. And she felt so discarded, rejected, used up, like a bag of trash thrown out. And the emotional fallout of his rejection had been brutal. She was body shaming herself and blaming herself for not being good enough for him. And I said, stop right there. It was time for a reframe. He is not good enough for her. Now, let's talk about that. She had been good enough until she wasn't, right? His shallow standards of how she looked in comparison to his new opportunity was more important to him than who she was as a companion or a partner or a lover. And as I asked more questions about the entirety of the 2 years of the relationship, her answers soon revealed clear signs that this relationship was not one of balance. There was a history of self-sacrifice on her part and self-serving on his. She had held on well past the knowledge of this for the same reasons so many of us do. So let's talk about those. There's the illusion of fixing a relationship by giving more. There's confusing familiarity with true compatibility. There's the fear of starting over or being alone. When that happens, you're fearing loneliness more than disappointment. There's the potential, seeing potential in the relationship or in the partner instead of the reality. So sometimes we fall in love with who we hope they are, who we hoped they'd become, and not who they are in reality, not who they are actually showing us they are in their actions. And sometimes it's because we've attached our identity and self-worth fully to the relationship. So in this case, she stayed, and perhaps you've stayed because you believed your love could be enough. But love alone cannot hold together a one-sided relationship. So let's expand a little bit on the reasons we do hold on longer than we should. So speaking to the illusion that we can fix a relationship by giving more, it really starts subtly. You start sensing a distance, perhaps. They stop putting in effort. You feel unseen or unheard or undervalued. And instead of stepping back to address and to assess what's missing from them, your instinct is to do more. You try harder, you give more love and more patience and more understanding, and you silence your own needs trying to make the relationship work. You try to earn their love or reignite what you once had or what you believed that you had. But here's the trap. The more you give, the more imbalanced the relationship becomes. You start doing the emotional labor for two. You pour from a cup that they no longer help refill. And when they still don't respond the way that you want and need, your natural reaction is to double down. If I just love them enough, they'll come back, right? If I'm more forgiving, more attractive, more accommodating, they'll see my worth. But listen, love doesn't work like that. You cannot fix what's broken in the relationship by overcompensating with your own effort. You can't change someone else's capacity to love or commit by loving harder. So what does this really say about you? And this was how the conversation went with my esthetician. What are your unconscious beliefs? Deep down, you may believe you're only lovable when you're needed. Does that resonate with you, perhaps? Or when you're selfless, or when you're useful. So perhaps you overgive to prove your value, hoping it will earn their affection. And others of us, it may be something more like control in disguise. Sometimes giving more is an attempt to control the outcome. If you can be perfect enough, maybe they won't leave. If you sacrifice enough, maybe they'll finally wake up and appreciate you. Have you ever felt any of that or thought any of that or experienced any of that? And then there are others of us who truly self-abandon, because the more we focus on someone else or fixing the relationship, the more we don't have to focus on ourselves, the more we can disconnect. We can disconnect from our own truth, from our boundaries. That's the hard work. It's easier just to lean into someone else, focus on them, abandon our own well-being. And if I had $1 for every person who has told me they lost themselves or gave themselves away in a relationship, sadly, I'd be a wealthy woman because of it. So what do we do? What I did with this woman was we reframed and we faced the reality. Reframing is a coaching technique where we take the truth, the reality, and we look at it from a different perspective, like putting a picture doesn't change the picture, but we put it in a new frame. So we look at it differently. So in reframing this, we need to look at what love is and love isn't. Healthy love does not require proving. It doesn't. Therefore, what was that an example of? Unhealthy love. If someone's withdrawing, it doesn't mean that you have to move towards them. It's not always a sign you need to work harder. Sometimes it's a sign you need to pause and look at what's no longer working. Listen, relationships are co-created. Co-created. They're a partnership. And if you're doing all the work, it's not love. It's sacrifice. Instead of sacrifice, relationships involve compromise. And there's a balance in that. So I'd encourage you to think through what the difference is between sacrifice and compromise. Now, another point that we were making before is that some of us might confuse familiarity with true compatibility. And when we're in a relationship, especially one that's lasted a while or maybe one that feels emotionally intense, we may mistake what's become familiar for what's right. Maybe it's like we feel at home with the person we're in relationship with. Maybe we've learned how to navigate their moods. We've learned to anticipate their needs. And it might be that we've actually walked on eggshells for so long that it's just that we've perfected the dance. Can you relate to that? And because it feels normal, we now assume it's love, or we at least assume it's compatibility. But here's the truth. Familiarity is not the same as compatibility, but we often confuse those two. And why do we confuse those? Because of our early conditioning. Many of us will unknowingly seek out partners who feel like our earliest emotional environments. What we experienced with our parents and our caregivers. So if love came with emotional unavailability or unpredictability, or we had to earn affection, we subconsciously seek that out again. So if it feels like home, sometimes that's what we seek, even if home wasn't healthy. There's also the trauma bond trap. When you've experienced emotional highs and lows with someone, fights, breakups, makeups, that intensity can be mistaken for passion or connection. Again, go back to your early home life. Was it chaotic? Was this what you witnessed as, and were told was love? But what's happening in truth is it's your nervous system being activated by what's familiar, not necessarily what's safe or right. Again, I hear this a lot from clients and from participants in support groups that this is just what they knew. And so it's what they sought, and it's why they stayed. It's what stuck for them as love. But it was never fulfilling. It never felt safe. It never felt right. It was just familiar. So there's this comfort in the known. Because why? Because you know how to survive the chaos. You've learned how to manage the roller coaster that this is. Sometimes it's silence that you've learned to manage. The stonewalling, the shutdowns, the dismissiveness. But that coping somehow becomes your definition of a relationship skill. subconsciously, of course. But when something and someone healthier comes along, someone consistent and kind, that might actually feel boring or foreign until you do what? Until you do your own healing work and come to recognize that was actually a stress response the entire time. But what is the difference? What's the compatibility difference from familiarity? Listen, familiarity is based on patterns you already know, whether they're healthy or not, while compatibility is going to be based on shared values, mutual respect, emotional safety, and aligned life goals. Compatibility does not drain you. It doesn't leave you questioning your worth. It feels stable, not chaotic, supportive, not performative. You don't have to perform to be valued. It's growing, it's not diminishing, doesn't shrink you. And I know you might say, but nobody knows me like they do. And they may tell you that too. And they may say, nobody loves you like I do. And that may be true. But the real question is, did they know you in a way that helped you grow, feel loved and safe, or in a way that made you shrink, chase, or settle? And the reason I say this is because when someone has left you behind and chosen someone else, and you think about the relationship, often we're seeing it through rose-colored glasses. But how good was it really? It's time for our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about that so that you can let go of what really did not serve you. Don't go far. We'll be back with more Soul CPR.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. We are back. We are talking about love that may have left you behind, but has it left you broken? And would you run back to it? I truly want you to take some time in reflection. Okay, the now what is, take some time to reflect. Look at the relationship objectively. Was it really, were you really perfect for each other? What was it really like? And I feel so passionately about this, about taking time, because oftentimes they run back to you. And I want you to be ready to think about this. If for some reason this was a toxic relationship, manipulative or anything, your judgment's going to be super clouded already, and it's going to be difficult to discern. But I've created a downloadable PDF that we're working on being able to link it into the show notes. If it's not available right away, I'll let you know in a future episode when it is and how you can get that. That's going to guide you through some, I think I have 10 different guided journaling questions to help you really sit down and reflect on this so you don't run back or you don't immediately accept someone back without having done your personal work on making sure where you sit with this relationship. Have they done their work before they've come back? And seeing if it's truly compatible or familiar. So compatibility, again, is based on shared values, mutual respect, emotional safety, aligned goals, all of that. Familiar does not always mean safe, and comfortable doesn't always mean good. Sometimes the person that you may run back to or who runs back to you is just a mirror of old pain and not your forever partner. So do yourself the favor of taking the time to try to heal and find meaning in the experience first. All right. Another reason that we kind of get stuck or they stay stuck on us, like the image that I posted on social media about today's show, where I said that letting go of someone's like allowing sand to fall out of your hand. There's always some that stay stuck, right? Well, one of the deepest reasons people will stay too long in a relationship or hold on, even if it's no longer healthy or loving or aligned, is simply fear. Not necessarily of the person. Now, that could be true in a toxic relationship, but of the unknown, of being alone, of having to start over, of having to do life without a partner. And that fear, it's valid, it's human. But why do we fear starting over so much? Listen, every one of us has had a lot of practice at starting over. Every year at school, we had to start over in that new grade with the new class, with the new teacher. So we all have evidence of the ability to start over in spite of nerves, of fear, of anxiety. We all did it. So remember your successes. We forget them, don't we? But we've all done it. We've started over many times. But when it comes to relationships, we start thinking, oh, I've invested so much time. And then there's this sunk cost fallacy that kicks in. I've already put in X amount of years. I can't just walk away now. But time spent in the wrong relationship doesn't justify sacrificing your health and happiness, does it? We fear we won't find better, perhaps, especially after rejection. It's easy to believe, I'm going to call it a lie. If I was truly lovable, they wouldn't have left. That's a lie. Because you are lovable, and they didn't leave because of you. They left because of something about them. And that could be a whole show. But it does leave you questioning your worth and thinking, what if no one else wants me? But the truth is, it's not that no one will love you. It's that you haven't been loved the way you deserve yet. And yes, part of that's your responsibility and accountability, and we're going to get to that. Now, loneliness feels unbearable. I know, I've been there. But being alone can feel like a failure or a punishment, I know. But sometimes loneliness is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's a sign that you're finally making room for what's right. Can you try to see it that way? Now, I think healing is all about cooperating with time. So it's not about just being lonely and suffering through it. It's about cooperating during that loneliness period to do the reflection work and taking accountability and responsibility for your part in a relationship, which might be holding on too long. Again, we'll talk more in a moment. And why, and what is it about me that stayed too long and held on, ignored red flags, etc. That's the healing work for you. That's the responsibility for you. But you have to allow yourself time to do that. and time to heal. Now, sometimes our entire identity is tied to the relationship, and you may not know who you are without being with your person, the person you've labeled as that. But starting over forces you to truly face yourself. And that's both terrifying and incredibly powerful at the same time. There's no greater work you'll do in your life than the work of self-discovery. I promise you that. But again, being alone does not mean you're unlovable. It means you're brave enough to stop settling. It's not a step backward. It's a clean page, a chance to choose better and love deeper and live more honestly. Live more honestly. I have so many people tell me they want to live an authentic life. They want to have peace in their lives. Okay. Well, you have to create that for yourself. The time you spend in healing and rediscovering yourself and reconnecting with what you truly want is not wasted. It's sacred. Okay, so it's not starting over. Perhaps the reframe would be, it's starting with you. You're not going back to square one, really. You're bringing new lessons, new clarity, new boundaries, perhaps new wisdom and strength that you didn't have perhaps before the relationship that's ending. And this time, you're not abandoning yourself. You're committing to you. Now, let's talk about self-comparison, because that is such a big thing. And it was in my conversation with my esthetician. You scrutinize the partner's new person's appearance, their personality, their status, and whatever it is that they have that you don't, right? So your ex's new relationship starts to really, you allow it to become evidence and proof of your inadequacy. It's gut-wrenching to see your ex move on, especially if they do it quickly. Even worse, if they did it and then broke up with you or cheated on you. It's even worse when they describe the new person as more their type, as happened to her. She said, he told me his new girlfriend is taller and skinnier and that he's always been attracted to that look. Ouch. These kind of comments stick like emotional daggers, and you start to internalize them, wondering what's wrong with you. So our ego starts trying to make sense of rejection. It starts looking for a reason, often in your appearance or personality. And either you start making yourself the opposite of the skinnier woman, you start eating more to prove you're not good enough, you start not taking care of your body, you start self-betraying to prove that you weren't good enough. Or you do the opposite. You start competing and trying to be the image he has put in front of you that he's more attracted to. Comparison becomes a form of self-harm in some way. And it's disguised as some kind of self-analysis. And of course, social media amplifies this wound, right? All the smiles, the illusion of perfect new relationships, and the curated posts. And part of cooperating with time to heal means you stop following him or her. You stop checking out where they're going and how they're spending their time together and relationship statuses. I know it's hard to do. It's natural to be curious, but you're not helping yourself heal. Now, comparison can be a natural coping mechanism when facing rejection, as that attempt to make sense of the pain, but the mind is playing tricks, and it's going to have you idealizing your ex and romanticizing him or her and the relationship in hindsight, while brutalizing yourself for not being the person you should have been. Have you ever had those kind of thoughts and said those kinds of things to yourself? It's not okay. So you got to break free from the comparison. You've got to reframe it. You've got to recognize that their type or preference says nothing about your worth. In fact, their preference is not a measure of your worth. Not height, not weight, not size. Nothing has to do with worth. Remember when I said he's not good enough for her? And what I meant by that, because of his shallow criteria for a girlfriend, it was about how she looked, not who she was. That should not have been good enough for my esthetician. That should have made him not good enough for her criteria for a partner. What's your criteria for a partner? So remember, you're not in competition with their new partner. They weren't right for you. If it's something like one of these scenarios, and you have to remind yourself, if they can overlook your depth and loyalty and heart, they're not your person. So affirm your own value regardless of their choice. All right, it's time for our second commercial break. When we come back, let's talk about taking responsibility without self-blame and shame. Don't go far. We'll be back with more Soul CPR.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Hello, everyone. You're tuned in to Soul CPR. I'm Ann Papayoti on the Bold Brave TV network. And today we're talking about someone walking away from you, even though you put everything into the relationship. But you do have some responsibility for having put everything into a relationship and staying perhaps past its expiry date. Let's use those terms. So, what does it mean to own your choices? It means to own them, but without self-blaming and shaming, acknowledging your role in holding on too long. Let's talk about blame. It may sound like it's my fault that he or she left. It's my fault they left. Responsibility, however, may sound like I ignored my own needs and tried to save this relationship. There's a difference. So, okay, you stayed too long. You knew in your gut that something was off and you held on anyway. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you someone who perhaps loved with hope. How's that? Um, Hopefulness is all about believing that they'll change or that your love would be enough. And you may have feared abandonment or rejection, and that came from somewhere in your past that might be your responsibility to look into healing so you don't repeat patterns in future relationships, right? Maybe you lost yourself in the pursuit of saving the relationship. So, what do you need to look at with that? Now, there's a fine line between accountability and self blame. It can get blurred. So, owning the choice to stay without shaming yourself for it, you have to recognize the emotional investment as a sign for your capacity to love. Okay? So, you have a great capacity to love. But you got to understand that staying too long does not make you unworthy. And taking responsibility is not about beating yourself up, but it is about reclaiming your power. So, here's where responsibility comes in. Knowing that you can't control their actions, but you can choose how you move forward. And that begins by letting go of the self-punishment and embracing the self-compassion. It begins by reflecting on where did you silence your intuition? When did you first recognize something was off and you ignored your gut? Notice where you first abandoned yourself so that you could be chosen by someone else. Start practicing now what honoring yourself looks like and sounds like. The moment you take responsibility for staying too long is the moment you start taking your power back. Some of your reflection is going to be, it felt like home, but it was that chaos. I was used to it. Control, the roller, the highs and lows. When it was good, it was good. When it was bad, it was bad, but it always came back to good. I learned the dance on the eggshells. I got good at it. At least I wasn't alone. What is your truth? Sit with it, feel it, acknowledge it, and then take responsibility for your healing so that you can break this pattern of relationships or in relationships so that you can truly have a healthy, mutually balanced, aligned, healthy, loving relationship, because you can have it. They do exist. Now, when you are able to kind of let go of the relationship, even if they've left you behind, because again, oftentimes they come back when the next one doesn't work out. Why? Because you did what? You held on a long time, and we teach people how to treat us. You have to break that cycle of hope. If they come back, most likely it's not going to be because they've changed. That's the truth. Now, I'm speaking in generalizations. There may be a situation where someone's done their work and they truly want to get together. I would encourage you to do couples counseling. If they're willing to do that, they're willing to sit with you with someone in a third chair that has an objective way of looking at the two of you and your relationship to help you come to terms with whatever broke you up the first time or the second time or the multiple times, whatever your history is. Now, you have to recognize also the difference between being missed and being valued. Because being missed feels good, doesn't it? And you might have dreamt about that. And then you might feel good that they chose you again after they were with someone else that was skinnier and taller or whatever the description was. and they're back. But what's the difference? They miss you, or do they value you? I've experienced this. And looking back, I was glad that I shut the door and turned the lock. How do you want to feel after they come back? So I want to encourage you to choose yourself over hope as well of their return, because if not, there's going to be a lot of disappointment as well. Now, creating space for self-love and new experiences is going to be very rewarding and fulfilling in the future. As you rebuild your confidence and rewrite that inner narrative about what actually went wrong, you're going to find your future is a lot more fulfilling. Letting go is actually an act of self-respect and not failure. So I would encourage you to find some empowering affirmations. And affirmations are those I am statements often that feel very awkward in the beginning to start saying them. But the more you practice in anything, the better you perform and the more comfortable you'll become with them. So things like I am worthy of being chosen every single day. What do you need to hear? Even though you might not believe it yet, repeatedly, that's going to start changing what you think and feel and therefore believe about yourself. Maybe it's something like, their leaving is not my loss, it's my liberation. What is it? It takes some time and reflection to sit with yourself to actually find these, right? And get to that place. So letting go doesn't have to be about giving up. It's about really taking yourself back. So do you hear the difference in the empowerment of the language, of the wording you use with yourself? I'm going to let go of hope. I'm going to let go of this person who left me behind. I'm going to let go. And if they choose to return to me, what am I prepared to face? How will I greet that? What is my question? What do I need to know? How do I need to think and feel? Because some of that love, like sand, after I release it from my hand, will still be stuck there. Some of my insecurities might still be stuck. What might still be there? So where do I need to be? What do I need to have reflected on? Where do you want to be? I can tell you when I had the situation where someone came to my door, and I did talk to them for a while, but it was very clear in a very short amount of time that I was missed, but not valued. And I have no regrets for showing them back to the door and locking it. So what do you want to have? How do you want to feel? Should this statistically probability happen in your life? All right. We're going to take our third and final break, and when we come back, I have some closing thoughts for you. Don't go far. We'll be back with more Soul CPR.
Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. Rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies. Find settings that allow them to be the most productive and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Mike Zorich, a 3-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorich, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorich has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Welcome back, everyone. If you gave your best to someone who wasn't ready, able, or willing to receive it, just know that it doesn't make you foolish. It makes you human. I think we've all probably experienced this at some point on one level or another. How long we stayed has a lot to do with how we grew up and what we learned about love. But we can always change that. And I would encourage you to, of course, give yourself time to reflect. As I said, even give yourself time to vent and to talk things out with someone who can be objective, because healing out loud, per the name of the show, is very powerful, and it can actually, I think, sort of short circuit a lot of the processing that has to be done. It really speeds things up, if you will. So anyway, if you hope that they're going to return, I think that's one way that people get stuck in emotional limbo. So I think letting go of hope is one of my key takeaways for you. And again, to ask yourself, if they come back, would anything really be different, or would it just continue to delay or impair the healing that I'm trying to engage in? I want you to know you can still love someone and let them go. You can miss them and still move on. And you may have been left behind, but that, again, does not mean you have to be left broken. And I always think about some of the most beautiful art creations that I've ever seen are made of shattered tiles and glass, mosaics and stained glass windows come to mind. And you too are a masterpiece, and only you can choose to put yourself back together again and heal. So again, letting go isn't about giving up on love. It's about giving yourself the love that you keep giving away. Now, I want to reassure you that healing does happen. And it is about cooperating with time, and that you're not alone in this journey. So be gentle with yourselves if this is something that you're experiencing and going through, and trust that letting go does make room for the right love. And the right love is one that's going to choose you every time, value you, respect you. Dan, can we put the QR code up and the website? So know that if you need help in this journey, that's not unusual either. You can reach out to me at skyviewcoaching.com. If we get my QR code up there, if you are viewing this, you can always scan the QR code as well. Thank you, Dan. You can connect with me on social media. On Facebook, it's at Skyview Coaching. On Instagram, LinkedIn, and X, it's going to be at Ann Papayoti. I will be working to try to get that link up for the downloadable PDF to guide you through some reflections, and I'll let you know when that is available, or you can check back on any of the links, any of the platforms, and see if that link is up for episode number 54, which this one is. And as this episode of Soul CPR comes to a close, remember that healing is not a linear journey. It is a process of profound transformation. And if today's episode resonated with you, please share it with others so that they can Perhaps use this as a lifeline of their own, and subscribe, rate, and leave us a review to help us reach more hearts. We greatly appreciate it. And let me know the stories and the topics that you'd like us to address here on Soul CPR Healing Out Loud, because this show is for you, and I would love to help make that happen for you. And as always, I thank you for listening. Until next time, may you find strength in your vulnerability and courage in your journey. Breathe deeply, love openly, and live soulfully. Good day, everyone.
This has been Soul CPR with host Ann Papayoti. Breathe life back into your spirit with each episode, where she and special guests explore the relationships that hurt us and discover that healing can only begin with you. Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.